I'm Susan Billy, and I'm the owner, sole proprietor of Bead Fever. My father is full-blood Pomo from the Hopland Reservation, Hopland Band of Pomo Indians. My mother's Scott, Irish, and English, and my parents met at UC Berkeley. My father was the first Indian from Hopland to go to a university. I grew up on the East Coast, but my grandmother, her name was Susie Billy, was a very famous Pomo basket weaver, and we owned 3 baskets that we had in our home in a very revered place in the bookshelves. And I was absolutely drawn to them and fascinated by them, and I just remember my whole life growing up and asking my father about those baskets. You know, how did you start a basket? How do you end it? I never could see a knot. I didn't know what the designs meant, and pretty much growing up, he would always tell me someday I could look up my great-aunt Elsie Allen, who lived in Ukiah. So I just filed that information, went about my life, went off to college, and eventually ended up in California, and eventually I moved onto the Hopland Rancheria. I was 23 years old, and Elsie was in her 70s. And in February of '74, I knocked on Elsie's door, and I said, "You don't know me, but I'm your relative. My father's Ignatius Billy, and my whole life he told me I could come ask you these questions." And she was rather floored and invited me in, and long story short, I ended up apprenticing to her for the next 16 years learning Pomo basketry. When I moved on to the Hopland Rancheria, some friends came to stay with me for a short while on a part-time basis, and the girl left a box of beads and a cat named Spirit at my house. I'd never done beadwork before. This was in '73. That winter of '73, and I just started fooling around with them. She left a book, a box of beads, and this cat. Loved the cat. And I just started teaching myself, and so I started this piece of beadwork that was a turtle. And I was just going along, not really thinking ahead, and I got to a place I was making a color gradation by alternating the beads, and I ran out of red beads. And I thought, well, I'll just go get some more red beads. And of course I didn't know where any bead stores were and so forth, but ended up going down to the Bay Area and just different places in my journeys around. And I couldn't find that exact color. And this actually went on now for a couple of years, me searching for this red bead. And Elsie was invited to New York to look at some basket collections in the major museums back there. And she always had me go along as her helper. We stayed at this woman's house, and we had a little bit of free time one day. We were there a few days, and I said to her, surely there must be a bead store here in New York. And I was carrying this bead piece around with me. And she goes, "Susie, there's a bead district in New York." I found the beads. I went into this place. I said, "Well, I just need a hank of these red beads." And the guy laughed at me and he goes, "Lady, we sell them by the kilo." I thought, "But I don't need a whole kilo, I just need 1 hank of beads." And he said, "Well, we sell them by the kilo." And so I didn't actually buy them right then. I went home and my husband said, "So why didn't you buy the kilo? If you went all these places and couldn't find them, don't you think other people would want a red bead?" I didn't know when I started that I would end up 21 years down the road, still doing it, still growing, still excited. I have customers that come from all over the United States. When they come to visit, you know, their friends or their relatives, their mom, their grandma, their auntie, they always come by. They'll come in and say, "Well, I'm here for my annual visit," and you know, it's wonderful. I mean, I love what I do. I love my store. I love it. I'm a recipient of amazing grace.